I'm Debbie Erlenbach, and I currently have the pleasure of serving as chair of the Board of Trustees at Maine Coast Memorial Hospital. This year, our hospital is celebrating 60 years of providing quality health care for members of our community. Since our hospital first opened, many changes have occurred in health care since November of 1956.
The hospital started with a man by the name of Ted O'Meara coming with a grandiose plan to have a hospital in Ellsworth. And it ran into quite a lot of opposition with people that like to go to Blue Hill and like to go to Bar Harbor. But with a group of people locally and with Edith's husband, Fitz, and his mother.
Right. Well, Fitz had been on the board of Abington Hospital in Philadelphia for years, since he was 21 years old, and was there till the day he died. And so I think Ted and he had a lot of vision to try to start this hospital. And I really think that they were the two of the movers, plus a lot of people in town too.
I remember the groundbreaking, and I was talking about this earlier. Dr. C.C. Little was the speaker, and he was in the throes of starting the Jackson Lab as we know it today. And he was the most striking figure of a man and speaker that I have really had ever seen. And no wonder that the Jackson Lab, is where it is now, and the hospital is where it is now, because we started with some really prominent people backing the hospital.
I think the idea really was to have Ellsworth as a center and put clinics out in the fingers, in the peninsulas, in the different directions, and Ellsworth would be the center for where everybody could come to when they needed more than the care in the local community.
And back in the beginning, of course, we had to recruit all of these doctors, and we had to convince them to come, and how nice the community was. So we'd have dinner parties, and we'd put them up overnight. We'd take them all through the area, and most of them lived right in Ellsworth. And the doctors became a very big part of the community. They belonged to the Rotary. Their kids went to the local schools. It was a very social group of people.
They, without exception, were families that liked to canoe, that quickly acquired camps on lakes and did a lot of outdoor activities. My father was very, very close to the conductor Pierre Monteur and his wife. We used to have music groups in our house, once a month throughout the winter. So we had art classes. My father was a wonderful artist, and the artist Frank Amabi used to come to our house again, and they'd set up the dining room with easels, and there were a number of people, including several doctors and doctor spouses, who came to those sessions and painted.
Because you must have known Teddy O'Meara and John O'Meara and that whole clan. And you mentioned Dr. Dolan, because we were just kids when Dr. Dolan was around. Well, I grew up on Bridge Hill, and that's where Dr. Suyama and Dr. O'Meara, Dr. LaCase moved in later, Dr. McIntyre was up on the hill. Yeah, so I grew up with all of those people's children, and it was kind of funny because doctors don't generally stay for that long of a period of time. Dr. Suyama was here forever. I know Dr. O'Meara moved away after a while. Dr. Dolan wasn't here very long, and it's kind of funny because you talk to some of these older people, and you mention, oh yeah, I know him, Dr. Lambden, and some of those people like that were around way back.
I can remember looking out maybe the window of 216 or 217, one of the patient rooms, because we were waiting for Dr. Alexander to come do rounds. I worked evenings and was evening supervisor for a while. And looking out, and you could see Mary Dow driving, the actual Mary Dow, not the building, driving into the hospital parking lot with her little white cap on, because she always wore, as a nurse, she always wore the starched white nurse's cap. But you could look right down into the car and see her and go, oh, there she is. I know he must be on his way.
See, Mary Dow was a battleship. She wore a nurse's cap and a white gown, total nurse, military nurse. All the doctors wore white coats. I was the first one who refused. So I thought it was elitist, so I would not wear my white coat, and she would harp on me for it. Except on her birthday, I would wear a white coat. And on my birthday, she would wear jeans. At that time, it was, I mean, a real rural hospital. I think our medical staff, if I'm not wrong, in 1977 were 12 doctors full time. When I retired, it was almost 50. I don't know what it is now. But we were, because it was such a small staff, we were total generalists. You know, A.G. Suyama was the only surgeon, so he was the orthopedist, he was the urologist, the general surgeon, the trauma specialist. We had a 2-room emergency room that was staffed at night by a nurse. So a doctor would be on call for the emergency room, so if you had a heart attack, you might well be admitted to the hospital by an obstetrician. You know, everybody just did everything. Eastern Maine was there, but Eastern Maine at the time, back then, was sort of like Ellsworth Hospital is now. It was a generalist hospital. It did not have a lot of specialty support. So, you know, complicated illnesses we took care of here. I mean, we managed respirators in the ICU and, you know, put in temporary pacemakers. I mean, things that we were trained to do, but were never called upon to do frequently. So it was oftentimes by the seat of the pants.
It's really interesting to go down and to look at that picture by the cafeteria and realize how many people in that picture I either know or remember.
Well,
Alice,
I have
Kinney.
to clear something up because in that picture it says Carol Smith.
It's a different Carol Smith.
I am here to tell you I am not that old. I've been here a long time, but not since the inception of Maine Coast Memorial.
No.
We've had a lot of aesthetic changes to Maine Coast too, not just from the emergency department, going from 2 rooms to
Oh, no.
that great
The
department.
OR went from
but
2 to
when
4.
you come up around the corner now, it really
It's a
gives you a
medical
lot
center.
of pride
Yeah.
in the way Maine Coast has grown over the years.
I can remember sitting in the boardroom with C.K. Foster and a number of other, and Joe LaCase and Lee Hayes and a number of other physicians. We were talking about, oh, should the medical office building be, you know, 1 story or 2 stories or 3 stories? And at the time, I just had the sense that Maine Coast was going to be a growing place. I said, I think we should just go for 3 stories. Certainly, we can use that eventually. I'm so glad we did, because the medical office building has been a vital part of the hospital. It's been fully occupied for years now, and we've had to actually build office space in other places. So, you know, when I look at the hospital, when I came, it was the initial building, but then the medical office got building on. Then we did 3 stories of a new cafeteria, a new operating room, a new intensive care unit, which are incredibly valuable additions to the hospital. And then more recently, we built the neuroemergency room, which is really the face to the community.
One of the very proudest moments I had, there were many, of course, but putting Fitz-Dixon's picture down in our new emergency room, and just the fact that it was his name on the emergency room. I like that a lot, because I love that man. I really, truly did. And I guess that's why he called me Mrs. Hospital. I came April 1st, 1958, but then, and I worked here a total of 54 years. But prior to that, I also worked my senior year in high school.
Here at the hospital?
Mm-hmm. Here at the hospital.
As a volunteer or as an employee?
Oh, I didn't get paid, no.
Well, there were probably a lot of those years early on when there was fear that no one would get paid.
That is true. Yeah, lots of times some of us would even have to hold our paychecks and wait until we had the funds to cash them. You know, like the maintenance guy and the administrator and me, you know, there were a good dozen of us. We just hang on to them and starve.
I don't think you starved that much. No.
You know, you think about the evolution of this hospital where the emergency room used to be right where we're looking out to the back side, and people, there was always a thing, oh yeah, they bring you in the front door and bring you back out the back, all that was, but the way the hospital was set up, in essence, that's the way it worked. You see how the hospital's almost turned around a couple of times.
The changes are extraordinary, I think the latest building is wonderful. The new Mary Dow clinic is, I've been in a few other places like that and seen some of the facilities, and ours is as good as any place or better. In fact, it's a better one than Abington Hospital at home.
Yeah.
It's more relaxing, more conducive to good care. And, the doctor's offices, many of them are right there at the hospital, which is really helpful because you can go get your tests and do all that kind of thing. But the whole way the hospital has grown is extraordinary from the little building that it was to begin with.
One of the really exciting things happened when I was the board chair in 2001, when we decided to mount a big capital campaign for 4 new operating rooms, new ICU, and a new dietary. And it was fun because we had, at that time, Fred Hutchinson, who's a retired president of the University of Maine, was on the board, and we talked him into being the chair, and he was great for fundraising. And it was fun because, of course, we wouldn't have been able to do it without the support of the Dixon family, but there were a lot of other people who were contributing a lot of things. And I can remember once we kicked the campaign off, the first call that I made with Dr. Alexander was a couple in Lemoyne, and so Charlie and I went over and sat down and talked to him, and he said, here's what we're going to do. How about $25,000? And they said, well, that's a lot of money. I said, well, yeah, that's an asking price. They said, how about 10? I said, we'll take it. And that's where it started. And a lot of fun things happened in that campaign. Getting out and meeting people in the community and getting them to support the hospital. And it was fun because everybody wanted to support the hospital. So it was an easy job.
I think the availability of specialty care, both here and in Bangor, made a huge difference. It changed our approach to the way we took care of patients, where we could say, this is beyond my expertise. I can get somebody else to help.
Because I really think in today's society that we can't totally stand alone, and that it's important to have as much facility for patients as we can.
We've all evolved a lot with this medicine, and I think this is a big thing. We are all living longer, and so you're getting to take care of us as we get older, and things are gonna continue to go that way, I guess. So it's a good thing.
Things sure have changed.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, Edith,
It's been a great 60 years. And here we still are after all this time. So,
On behalf of the Board of Trustees, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who has helped the hospital reach this milestone. Without the dedication of our staff, nurses, providers, and administrators, we would not be the quality organization that we are today. With the continued support of our caring volunteers, our generous donors, and our supportive community members, we look forward to meeting the healthcare needs of our communities for the next 60 years.